This DIY is so much fun, but I'm going to recommend, if you're going to do this project, go get white pipe cleaners as well as white beads. You will spend a lot of time trying to cover up those colors. So what you're going to need are some of these kid beads. You could do the colored ones. You can pick all of this up from Dollar Tree. But if you want to spend less time trying to get rid of the color that's on there, this will work even better. Add about 23 beads to 25 beads on each pipe cleaner, and you're going to need 8 to 10 pipe cleaners depending on how thick you want your little faux corn to look. On one of the ends, go ahead and twirl all of the ends together to create a little nub. And once you've got those all twisted around nice and tight, you're then going to hold it at the nub pointing up and star out all of the different pipe cleaners. Then start to push down the pipe cleaners around and over that little nub, pushing all of the beads to that end where you just knotted it up. And then at the top, start to twist it and start to add more of that pressure in there at that other end to start twisting them down into place to create a second nub. Once you've got that second nub in place, go ahead and open them up, twist it down underneath, and then push around the sides of those other pieces of long bead strands. Now you can see at this point it's really colorful, which is super fun if you're doing this for a kid's craft. But if you want it to look more farmhouse, you're going to have to take it outside and you're going to have to paint it. I spray painted mine at first to see how well the coverage would be, and then I found that the pipe cleaners just weren't covering as well as I would like them to because of the fiber and the fabric. The spray paint just wasn't adhering to it. So I came back in and I'm using some of my chalk paint to do that. So I will again recommend, if you're going to do this project, get white pipe cleaners and get white beads, and you'll save yourself a ton of time, and then this project is super easy. If not, the painting process will take a little bit longer. So I just want to give you all the truth. I found this cute inspiration on Pinterest a long time ago, and I wanted to make sure that you understand and know that if you do this, go with the white ones. It'll save you a ton of time. At this point, I took some of this grass hula skirt and I cut off a piece. I'm folding it in half, I'm twisting the end, and I'm going to tie a knot. That's because this is going to become the husk part of the corn. We are going to just tie a knot and we're going to glue that onto the top of the two corns, which at this point, it looks so cute. Once I brought in some of that dry brush distressing on the corn to bring forth the little nubs from those beads, it just looks like a piece of corn, and it's such a cute project. This is super cost efficient. You can make a ton of them for hardly any money. Now I added that corn husk up at the top, and now I'm going to add on a really big bow, and it just is so cute for the fall season. You can't have a fall video without a pumpkin in it. So I wanted to share how I'm going to update the look of these DT pumpkins, and I'm simply going to just pop out those top little pumpkin stems because we're not going to be using those. And then I'm going to put them on a shish kebab stick, and this is going to allow me to paint them without putting my fingers all over it and taking forever to paint it. I like to do this tip where I just like to poke a shish kebab stick in it, and it really lets me get that painted desired look without my fingerprints being all over it. Now I'm using a very taupey white color on this because I wanted it to have a concrete cement look. And then I'm coming back in with more of a brown, very soft tan brown, and I'm coming into the inner bumps of that pumpkin. Now the trick to get that really pretty concrete look is you go inside of that crack of the bump, and then you come back in with the lighter color on your finger and you massage it all into place, which will create that shading and that tinting. Once you're all done doing that, go ahead and take a stick from outside and you're going to just cut a hole into the pumpkin that's the size that you will need.
Anytime I ever work with foam, you will see that I get that off my desk immediately because it goes everywhere every single time. It's such a messy thing to work with. And then I'm just going to hot glue my stick right down inside, add a little bit of this Spanish moss from the DT, and then on my smaller pumpkin, I decided it needed a leaf. So I'm going to put on this beautiful olive green maple leaf, and really this is just going to complete that look. I'm only going to put on one because I love the other one just being with the stick and the moss.
This sign is going to be so cost friendly to recreate. We're going to just take one of these long signs from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to pop off this fun little arch part that says Happy Holidays. I will keep that for another project later on down the road, but I only want to get to the base of this sign. I'm also going to pop off the ribbons and the staple, and then once I'm done getting all that off, I'm going to go ahead and take some of my putty and I'm going to fill in those holes from the staples. When they punch into these boards, it can cause a little bit of a divot. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in and sand it so it's nice and smooth on the same surface, because we are going to be painting this whole thing black. Now you could paint it whatever color you want, but I went with black because I really love black during the fall season. I just think it looks so pretty with all of the fall colors. I don't know, it gives it more of a rich, deep tone. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just what I like. So you can paint any color you want, but after I got it all dry, I went ahead and used my ruler and I sketched on the words "The Simple Life." After a while, friends, we start to just wear ourselves out, and sometimes it's okay to just have a simple day. And so I just wanted to remind myself and my family that we don't have to run every second. It's okay to slow down. I think the Sabbath day is always my favorite day of the whole week because I just love that time to slow down and to just really focus on the things that calm my spirit. Once it was all dried, I sanded the corners, and then on the back side I flipped it over and then took some of that gingham fabric and covered the back so it has a nice clean finish. And then I took another strip and tied it onto the side of the sign. I'm going to tie it with 2 knots or 2 ties to make a knot, and then I'm going to do a dovetail cut on the ends and tuck in some of this wheat. I just think that this is so cute and how it turned out. Tucking these in here on the side, it really gives it that fall country look. And then I'm going to take this little pumpkin, I'm going to tuck this in here with lots of hot glue so it really stays on there. This has more of a foam feeling, so it adhered really well. I didn't need to stick a skewer stick in it or anything. And then the last is adding on this bow, and it's ready to be displayed as a good reminder in my home. This DIY is going to be using this little hat from the Dollar Tree. It's a witch's hat, and it's the most adorable size. I love that it's not too big and not too small. We're going to start by removing all of the tinsel off of this hat. Once you've removed everything, you're going to notice there's all these little bumpies that are all over it, and we're going to just snip those off. I would recommend using some pliers that can cut them off, some wire cutter pliers. That will be able to cut them really easily without having any issues. Once you get it as smooth as you can, we're going to start with a base fabric. I'm going to be using this felt from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue it all over the hat, making sure that we have our first layer on it. This is very quick. You're just basically wrapping it and cutting off any extra that you don't want, that isn't matching the shape, and then gluing down the things that need to be glued down. So you can see here that I have some extra at the bottom, and I'm just going to take my scissors, snip away the extra so that way we have a clean line around the cone. Now we're going to go ahead and take some white burlap, and I'm going to just simply wrap it around the same exact process. And you can see why having that bottom felt piece underneath was really important, because it's going to allow
it to look white underneath versus being able to see all of those lines that were originally on the form. Then I took some more of that felt. I cut out a large circle, making sure it was large enough to be able to pull up around the brim of the hat. Glued that all into place, and now I'm coming in with a long strip of the burlap. I'm going to do a really cute ruffle on it. I'm just kind of zigging and zagging back and forth until I have gotten a beautiful ruffle coming off the brim of the hat. And I'm going to do 2 layers of this ruffle because I just think it looks so full and beautiful. Now this is really easy to do. I'm not even pleating, I'm just kind of gathering and kind of bunching it up onto the hot glue. And I'm using these finger protectors that they have at the Dollar Tree. Whenever I work with burlap, I do use these because the hot glue can seep through the holes of the burlap. Then at the end, you're going to cut off the extra, fold that last of it underneath, and then tuck it and glue it into place. Now we're going to create this part around the base of the hat, and we are going to wrap it around, and it's going to be a little bit loose, and that's okay because we want to have a little bit of a ruffle effect on that as well. So you can see here I cut off the extra, and I tucked the extra piece underneath this flap that's coming around the whole thing, and I'm just going to glue that right down into place, and that creates the cutest little finish on the side of the hat. I love how that turned out. Now we're going to take the yarn that I picked up from the Dollar Tree as well, and I'm going to just start to spin it around the middle of that fabric, and I'm going to just keep playing with it, gluing it in little spots here and there to hold it into place. And then once that's tied and glued down, I can start embellishing. I'm going to put on some different buttons that are peachy colors and orange with white stars, and then a darling little spider that's black on it. I think this project turned out so adorable, and I hope you will give it a try. When I go to my thrift stores, I run into a lot of these wood box signs as well as these little wooden boxes. I find tons of them all the time, and I wonder if people knew that you could transform this into something really cool by just adding a couple of supplies to it. Now here on YouTube, you see a lot of people making tiered trays, and sometimes when you use the Dollar Tree supplies, they can get a little bit pricey. And I just wanted to give you another option to show you that you can use these type of things, think out of the box, and turn them into the coolest tray ever. So I'm going to just remove all of the stuff that was all over them, the hooks to hang it up on the back of the white frame, the ribbon and the bells on the box. I'm going to patch those holes, and now I'm going to take this leftover stair spindle that I cut down from a previous project a couple days ago in another video, but I'm going to just cut it down. I'm going to use 4 small balls and 1 larger ball, 1 long craft stick that's a little bit thick, not too thick, and 4 shish kebab sticks. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my drill, and right at the corners where they meet up on the sides of my boxed artwork, I'm going to drill 4 holes in those corners, and then I'm also going to drill a hole right in the center of that artwork. Now I'm going to take those shish kebab sticks and those 4 balls, and I'm going to put hot glue down inside of them, add a stick to them, and make sure that the glue is not popping out over, because we want to be able to lay this as flat as we can onto that art canvas. Then I'm going to cut them down, and the reason why we're doing this with these shish kebab sticks is it's going to allow the ball to really bond up into the actual artwork, instead of just having it glued the ball to the bottom of the box or the artwork and then it's going to pop off over time. This is really going to allow it to have something to hold on to, and it'll be really sturdy and built well. Then I drilled a couple of holes to allow the wood not to crack, and now I'm just going to come in with my screw. You can tell right here I was trying to get it to stand just right so I could drill it in, so I was struggling there just a little bit, but I eventually got it to go. I added in some glue where I needed it and then drilled that together. Then up at the top, I'm drilling a bigger hole. And sometimes I don't have the exact size drill bit size that I need. So sometimes I just kind of slowly go around a little bit in a circular motion and it gets a bigger hole that I need. So that way I can be able to fit this dowel down in there. I'm sure some people are going to tell me that's probably not the best move, but it is what I do in my craft room. If I'm being real, I am a little rogue and a little wild when it comes to my crafting. I guess it's just because I use my drill a lot and I feel really comfortable with it. So please don't do anything you don't feel comfortable with. So you can see here that I cut down that wood stick down to size. I'm going to put that piece in there. Then I'm going to add on some more wood glue and hot glue for a long-term, short-term hold. Once I've got all of my glue on, I then can take my little wooden box that I also drilled a hole in, and I'm going to just simply slide that right on, and it's going to lock into place and have a really nice good hold on it. Now, because you can see that popping up, I'm now going to take the other part and bring that right on, and this makes it look like the wood is going all the way through, and it just gives a beautiful finish. Now up at the top, we need something to be pretty to finish the top of that bar that's holding it all together, or the pole. So I'm going to take that larger ball, and I pick up these wooden balls from Hobby Lobby, but you can basically get them from any craft store. And then I'm going to just glue that right down in there into place, and it really finishes the top nicely. Then to finish it off, I took it outside and spray painted it this beautiful green color, and boy, did it transform these items. For this DIY, I am using 3 of these signs from the Dollar Tree, some drop cloth, tan fabric, and then a rope. I'm also going to bring in a floral pick in a little bit, but I'll show that a little bit later on. I'm going to start by removing the things off of 2 of the pumpkins, the metal leaf, the burlap bow, and then the twine little band that was on it to help hang it up. I laid it on the piece of drop cloth, traced it, and now I'm cutting it so that I'm left with the shape of the pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and add that right onto the pumpkin and glue it into place, and I'm doing that to 2 of the pumpkins. Once I have that fabric all glued into place, I'm going to flip them over, and we are going to be gluing them together with this rope. Now this is the rope from the Dollar Tree, and I'm untwining it so that it will have 3 different strands. And I'm just going to glue it into place on the back, making sure all of them are the same length so it hangs evenly. Once I have those all glued on the bottom, I moved on to the top, and then any excess that I didn't want, I went ahead and cut it off. And then I came up to the top and also put a piece of rope at the top to be able to hang it up. Back over on the front side, I'm going to go ahead and add on some greenery, this beautiful warm toned orange sunflower, and then I'm also going to add on some greenery to the orange pumpkin as well that's in the middle. It's really simple. You just lift up that metal leaf and glue it down into place, and then that will complete our look. For this project, we are going to be taking these little buckets or potting pots from the Dollar Tree. They have these around springtime, and I've been holding on to them, and I thought I could turn this into something really cool. So we are going to make a mini urn that you would see out in the front of a porch. I thought this would be so cool. So we're using some E6000 and some hot glue, and together these make the cutest little urn, and we're going to make it look more like a cement or concrete urn. I thought that would be really pretty to do that. So once those are all glued together and they're nice and set and hard, then we're going to take some white paint and come in and give it a quick coat of white paint. Now I did this because I wanted to allow this wood filler, this putty that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I wanted to give it something to bond to hold it nice and together. And I went all over the whole thing, creating a lot of depth and texture. This is what's going to make it look like it's cement or concrete, where it's a nice beautiful texture on it. Then we're going to come in with a bunch of different tones of gray until we get the desired look that we want. You're going to add in some darker, some lighter, and then at the very end you're going to bring in the last, which is white, and you're going to lightly dry brush all over it. Once that's all done, I sealed it with some Mod Podge to make sure nothing chipped over time and it stayed nice and strong and sturdy, looking like it's concrete. And then I'm going to come in and add my piece of foam, push it down into place, and add some hot glue. This is going to allow it to stay in place if it ever gets knocked over and things don't fall apart. I like my stuff to just be nice and sturdy whenever I make things. Now I'm going to take that really whimsical, dainty flower that they have at the Dollar Tree. I stuck that in first, and then I'm adding in this really pretty leaf pumpkin option they had at the Dollar Tree this year. I loved these. I thought they were so cute, and when you cluster them together, they look like a mini tree. I thought this was so fun because when I brought all of them together at the base and wrapped it with twine, that became the look of a trunk, and all together it just looks like a mini tree inside of this urn, which is so cute to put on a table somewhere in your home. So make sure you wrap your twine nice and tight, and then at the bottom make sure you add some glue so everything holds into place. And then you're going to take some of this moss that they have, and you're going to just add in some hot glue and keep massaging it in. Make sure you use a popsicle stick so that you don't burn your fingers. That's what I like to do whenever I get into tricky parts so I don't hurt myself. And you're just going to keep massaging it into place so that you get it nice and packed in, and then you're ready to put it out for decor. I was so excited when I found this beautiful frame with this artwork that goes so perfect with the colors I'm doing in my own home for the fall season. So first I started by just dusting off the frame to make sure everything was ready to be painted, and then I'm going to come in with some white paint and just simply do a couple of layers on it to make sure that it has a very nice coat. Now I'm going very cautiously and carefully around the fabric part of the frame. I loved that neutral tan color and I wanted to make sure I kept that intact. So I'm just taking my time with my angle brush going around it. Now I love projects like this because you can take old artwork and give it a brand new look by just painting the frame. Now I'm going to make sure that it's dry before I do my second coat to make sure it's really dried and really saturated with the white. And now I'm going to come in to give it that farmhouse look. I'm going to take my sandpaper and very lightly sand certain edges of the frame as if it looks like it had been worn for some time. After that, it's ready to be displayed. Look at the before and after by just painting the frame white. It really did transform this artwork.
This project is super simple. We're going to take this tray outside and we're going to spray paint it white. We're also going to be using some of these pumpkins, and I'll show you what to do with those in just a second. Once the paint is dry on your tray, go ahead and dry brush on some distressing as much as you would like, or not at all. Distressing is not your thing. That's the thing I love about projects, is that we can take an idea and then jump forward with it however we want in our own craft rooms. So I hope that this inspires you to just have fun with it and make it your own. Now I wanted a little bit more texture, so I'm going to sand those raised bumps at the edge of the tray. And now we're going to take one of our kitchen steak knives and we're going to cut down the pumpkins half or 3/4 of a way. And then we're going to start kind of positioning them. So now that they're flat, It's going to allow us to make it look like a patch full of pumpkins. This part is so fun. You're going to be able to customize it however you want. Once you have the positioning and the different sizes that you want, you're going to go ahead and start gluing them down into place. Now I'm going to play with mine a little bit more. That initial pumpkin, I decided to cut it down so it's a little bit shorter than the white Cinderella pumpkin because I wanted them to kind of come down at an angle. This is why I said this part is so fun, because you can customize it to however you want. Then you're going to add a whole bunch of hot glue so it stays on there nicely. Glue those down into place, and then once you've got all of that glued into place, locked in, you're going to create the bed that the pumpkins are all sitting in your little patch. Add some more hot glue and come in with some Spanish moss coming around the bottom to conceal where you made all of those different cuts. And you can see here that I added in a whole bunch of stems into the pumpkins. Once all of that is done and glued down, we're going to go ahead and take one of these wood cutout from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to do the thankful one, and you're going to see initially I painted it brown, but when we finish it's actually black. I felt like it needed more of a contrast farmhouse vibe to it. So I went ahead and glued that down. And now I'm going to come in with some of this bead garland, and I'm just going to coil it, glue those into place. And then at this point I decided it needed one more small pumpkin and a contrasting color. So I came in with an oranger pumpkin that's tiny. And then, like I said earlier, I went back and painted it black so it had more of a farmhouse look to it. And it had that contrast where it stands out even more. So I'm just tapping that paint on gently, and in the end you have such a beautiful sign to display in your home. This DIY has actually been a pretty popular one. I've seen a lot of friends working with these pumpkins, but I wanted to show a more neutral look and something that I like in my own home. I wanted to make these for my house, so I thought I would share them. So I'm going to take one of these velvet pumpkins. I'm popping out the little faux stem that's in it and off the fabric that was wrapped around it. And then I'm going to take some of this white nautical rope, and we are going to simply just put it all over the pumpkin. Now, a trick with this nautical rope, I like to squeeze a little bit of glue and then I twist it tight, and that's going to keep it from unfraying later on or while you're working with it, and it's just going to keep it looking nice and tight and how it's supposed to be looking. And then at the bottom of the pumpkin you're going to put a big dollop of glue, spiral it around, and continue on. Now the trick to make this look really high end is you want to keep pressing the rope together so there are no seams and there are no little spots where you can see the inside of that pumpkin that we're using as the form to wrap our rope around. That truly is the trick, whether or not it looks store-bought or not. And then once you get around to the top, you're going to notice that the smaller pumpkin needs about 1.5 of the nautical ropes, and the larger pumpkin is going to need about 2 full ropes. And then once I've got it all the way spiraled around the top, and this texture just looks so pretty, you could do this with so many different things, so many different types of ribbons and ropes. But when you get to the very top, you're going to want to start coiling it in really tight, continuing to push that rope down. And then as you get into the center, you're going to go ahead and cut it. Now you could put back the original stem, but I thought it would be really pretty to bring in some of these little log pieces that they have in their floral section at the Dollar Tree. And then you're just going to make sure you get that nice and snug in there, add in your hot glue, and then pop it back in. And the two of these side by side are so cute. Total cost to make these were about $5, maybe even a little bit less. And I just love how these both turned out.